What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so we're picking up with Infinity War Part 3. One thing I always found kind of weird too, kind of an aside, I saw this in like a comment section in the comments of the last video. Somebody was like, you should cover this story that's super obscure from like 20 years ago. And it's like, why though? Like no one but you would watch it. That's weird. I never understood why people do that. But anyway, okay, so here's the cool thing. So initially we pick up in the aftermath of like this explosion, right? Like this explosion that supposedly killed all the superheroes. Of course they didn't all die. This isn't Age of Ultron. So because of that, like everybody in this whole situation survived, but they survived because of Susan Storm. Now, Susan Storm's kind of cool. I want to say this is the point in Marvel Comics when they were experimenting with the malice personality, and Lord have mercy, I really hope they don't bring that to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Those of you guys who don't know, Susan Storm was considered to be like the Jean Grey of the Fantastic Four, right? Like for years and years and years, Jean Grey was like worthless. I mean, she couldn't do anything. And so like Susan Storm was in a lot of the ways the same way. She was just like the nagging wife. So they were trying to find ways to beef her up. Like funnily enough, it took it took like 30 years and Jonathan Hickman to finally write a story that made her awesome. But one of the things that Marvel tried to do is they experimented with something called malice, where it was basically like the evil persona of Susan Storm. It was not very good. They did other stuff too, like they would show her cleavage and there would just be like a force symbol in front of her chest. Like it was just weird stuff like that. But nonetheless, like when it comes down to it, Susan Storm is actually one of the more powerful people in the superhero community. The other thing I want to talk about too, and I don't believe we talked about this in the last video, we may have, and I may have forgotten. I want to talk about Thor for a second. So this version of Thor is not actually Odin's son. It's a guy named Eric Masterson, a construction worker. But one of the things that Marvel's done over the years is they switched out Odin's son for other people to play the role of Thor. There have been other people who have played that position. Beta Ray Bill did it for a little while. Eric Masterson did it for a little while. Even the Donald Blake personality has been switched out for other people. But again, the idea here and the one big takeaway is that, of course, all this happens, you basically have like Reed Richards, the evil version, the evil doppelganger Reed Richards, who's basically taken by like the Magus and, Iron Man and the, doppelganger of Thanos to kind of appear out of nowhere. But one thing to remember here is that these are basically three sets of events, three roads, all sort of coalescing into the same location. That you have Galactus and you have Doctor Strange and like a handful of others, Silver Surfer, Frankie Ray, who's this herald at the time. You've got Adam Warlock and his whole Infinity Watch who are investigating things. And then you've got Earth superheroes who are just now catching on to the fact that something is happening. And so because of all this, it is cool and it does work. It can get a little fuzzy at times, especially when you're going through issue by issue, as opposed to like reading it in trade. It's one of those things where it's a lot easier to understand when you're reading the whole thing in trade. But again, it does serve its purpose and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. The other half of this is, remember, we're dealing with forces of energy that are somewhat recognizable, but a little bit ambiguous. When it comes to Marvel Comics, the best way to think about powerful artifacts like the Infinity Gauntlet or the Cosmic Cube or something like that is think of it like a musical note. If I hit like the note of A sharp, like that's the main Marvel universe. If I hit the note of D sharp, that might be the Ultimate Universe. The reason why this matters is because when you're Galactus or when you're Doctor Strange or you're someone who's trying to home in on energy signatures, you don't necessarily know what they are because they're not quote unquote recognizable. You're not familiar with them because they're not recognizable energy signatures that you've seen before. The Cosmic Cube has appeared over and over and over again in Marvel Comics. That's really like the best way to explain it, but these are other universe versions of the Cosmic Cube that they're trying to track down, albeit not really knowing what it is that they're hunting for. And the same thing goes with Adam Warlock and the Infinity Watch and all these different guys. It's hunting down and trying to find like the source of these energy emanations and where it is that they're coming from. Now, something else that I also want you to take note of here is the nature of the Magus. Because the Magus is like the evil counterpart to Adam Warlock, unlike Adam Warlock, he's not really grounded in terms of being like a reasonable person. Really, it's like every dark desire and every dark perception and every dark aspect of Adam Warlock come to bear in like the form of the Magus. And so he's arrogant, he's headstrong, he doesn't believe that he can lose. That's the gamut that he's playing here. He believes he'll never lose. Like he believes he's the one that's always on top and he's always got the upper hand. But the situation proves itself to be true. And that's the nature of things. You remember, Adam Warlock is like a master tactician. He has, cosmic awareness. He has all these abilities at his disposal. The Magus has all those as well. And so when you have cosmic awareness and you're basically aware of what's going on in the universe all at the same time, not to mention like your ability to be a master tactician, then what you basically do is you treat everyone around here like they're chess pieces. And that's what Magus is doing. This is a chess game to him. It's going through, it's moving like the Avengers, the X-Men, Earth superheroes. It's moving them here. It's moving Galactus and his forces there. It's moving the Infinity Watch there to play this long game for the purpose of like achieving a particular goal. Now, the other part of this is Captain America hits up Quasar, Wendell Vaughn. Now, this again goes into the idea of anthropomorpho, the things we talked about in the last video. But the long and short of this is that he basically traveled out into other other dimensions to try to find help, to see if there was something he could do, to basically find some measure of aid. Along the way, he finds Eternity, who's locked in a catatonic state. And this is a pretty significant deal, because someone out there, basically, presumably the Magus, by whatever force he's wielding, has the ability to like shut down Eternity, which is a pretty significant amount of power. This also comes to bear when we have like Galactus and his guys traveling through this, this dimensional portal, more or less, trying to make their way to the source of this energy, and their ship is destroyed by the Magus. So what we're seeing here is like this massive amount of energy put on display by this guy who's going through like turn by turn and taking out every single one of these groups if they get too close. And that's what was going on with Galactus. Galactus and his guys were getting too close to the source. The Magus doesn't mind them showing up and like seeing him there. The idea is they can't arrive yet. They can't figure out everything that's going on yet because not all the pieces are in play. And that's really what this is. I mean, with Galactus, the Magus, in terms of like the external power he has, like the sources of energy he's using in the cosmic cubes, sure, he could kill Galactus. By himself, not a chance. And that's the whole idea, is to like toy with this whole perception and to keep all these things going, to keep everybody on the edge of their toes. The other thing that I also want you to notice here, and this is really cool, a conversation between Adam Warlock and Thanos. Now, the reason why this matters is because this sort of back and forth relationship between the two, this goes all the way back to Infinity Gauntlet, and even before that, it goes all the way back to when Jim Starlin started writing the two characters and then having them pair up in like the Power of Warlock stories. For Adam Warlock, going forward into the future of Marvel Comics, he will have, it's kind of weird, like a grudging friendship, more of like a mutual respect between himself and Thanos, because they've both attained godhood at some point along the line. But even the roles they serve are intriguing. Adam Warlock is an avatar of life, is basically what he is. He's a protector of life. He's the Marvel Comics version of Jesus. Thanos would be like an avatar of death. He worships Mistress Death. He wants to see things die. He's a nihilist. He believes that all life is meaningless. But between the two of them, because they're polar opposites and opposites attract, they form this very strong bond in terms of like a mutual respect for each other. And that's why, Jim Starlin always went forward in the Infinity series with like Adam Warlock and Thanos kind of facing off, being enemies, teaming up, all these different things, is because there's this mutual respect that goes on between the two. And that's the funny thing, is because Adam Warlock talks about everything that had gone on. The idea of him having the Infinity Gauntlet, the idea of him basically like showing up and saving the universe during the Infinity Gauntlet event. And Thanos' response is, yeah, sure, like you stopped me from using the Infinity Gauntlet to save the universe, and your reward was godhood. But Adam Warlock willingly gave that up. He chose to go on trial. Now, in truth, like they would have just taken him. The Living Tribunal would have just whisked him away to, the Dimension of Manifestations and would have said like, you're not going anywhere. He was basically kind of forced to disband the Infinity Stones after the Living Tribunal had basically decreed they wouldn't work together anymore. But the fact remains, Adam Warlock, the current state that he's in terms of being a protector of the universe, that's a choice. He's not forced into that position. But it's kind of interesting because when you look at this and you see Adam Warlock in this position where he's protecting the universe and the Avengers and the X-Men and the Fantastic Four are nowhere to be found, then it's like, okay, here I am yet again, saving their rear ends. Like they're just resting on their laurels, doing whatever it is they're doing. But again, that hits home at the idea that not all the pieces on the board know what the others are doing. Adam Warlock does not know what the Earth superheroes are doing. The Earth superheroes don't know what Adam Warlock's doing. All they know is that as far as their own individual pieces of information are concerned, things are popping off pretty extreme. Now, one thing I also want you guys to sort of keep in the back of your heads for a second is this is the foundation, not in terms of like the story, but this set of events in terms of how they unfold is a foundation for the Illuminati. The Illuminati came out of the Kree Skrull War. That's where that group formed from. But this was the entire scenario that was taking place in that event. You had all these different factions and groups who all had individual pieces of information, but nobody ever bothered to share it. It wasn't until like the very end when things got dire that they managed to pull it off. But that was the formation of the Illuminati. The Illuminati were in a situation just like this, like what all the superheroes and the Infinity Watch and Galactus are in, and they said, well, if we shared information, we wouldn't run across this problem, so we'll form the Illuminati, and that'll be the basis for everything. That's really like how all that kind of came to fruition. And so because of this, what you have is you have Scarlet Witch alongside Dr. Druid and a handful of other mystics who are there that are like tracing the sources of this energy in terms of like what's going on with like cosmic cubes and so on and so forth. Now again, they don't know it's cosmic cubes. They just know it's energy out there somewhere. And so of course with the mystics basically locating or at least triangulating this source, they kind of combine their power and whisk them all away to this new dimension where everybody's supposed to be showing up, where it is that Adam Warlock is hanging out at. And that's the whole basis here, is Adam Warlock is waiting for each one of these groups to arrive in their own turn and make their presence known. And the idea is that if he timed it correctly, they're all going to arrive at the exact same time. And that's basically what happens. The Infinity Watch is already here trying to triangulate this source, and then suddenly they're met by the arrival of the Earth superheroes. And where the Earth superheroes look at the situation and they see Thanos, their first thought is exactly what you would expect it to be. They panic. They believe Thanos is the one behind it, instigating and orchestrating this whole thing, and that's the Magus' plan. Pit these superheroes against each other, make them fight one another so that he can continue on his campaign. If you cannot defeat two opposing enemies, then make them fight each other, and then basically allow the battle to be won that way. It's a classic rule of engagement. Make your enemies fight each other and then conquer them when they're crippled. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.